Hi, this is Mr. Curtis, and today we are going to be talking about something called homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's attempt to keep all things in balance. Better functionings of systems. If everything stays nice and even, maintain an even strain without wild fluctuations, your body works better. And there are many different things within your body that you want to keep nice and even. And we're going to be talking about some of those. Let's start first with what homeostasis means. Well, they come from two Greek terms, homeo meaning resembling or like, and stasis is also Greek meaning standing still. And yes, we have many words within our modern day English that come from these terms. Some of you may have already heard of these. So for example, we have STET. A STET is like something where you cut it off. If you close something off, they talk about a STET. Stay, well, yeah, you've heard that before. STAT. Bring me that instrument, stat, right away. There's also things like hemostat. That would be to cut off or to close. It's like pinches off the blood supply. And state, isn't that an interesting one? That comes from the old Greek term as well. Now, as you look at how something is set up in our body, take this for example. Let's say that you were to set the temperature in your house at 72 degrees. Okay, so you set your thermostat at 72 degrees, and let's say that this is the actual point of 72 degrees. Let's see, what color should we make that? Let's just make that black. So this is our 72 degree line. Yes, it's not very straight, but oh well, you can live with it. Now, in your house, what really happens? Does it stay at 72 degrees in the wintertime, for example, when you set it at that temperature? No, it doesn't. Here's what happens, and this is, of course, over time. In the wintertime, your house is going to cool down, and as it starts to cool down, it'll get to a point where the thermometer will kick in and say, hey, we're below 72 degrees. And the furnace starts to run. Well, as the furnace starts to kick in, guess what? It's not spitting out hot air right away. It takes a while to produce that hot air, and in the meantime, your house temperature still is going down. Well, then it starts to make warm air, and your temperature goes up in your house, and then the thermometer will say, oh, wait, we're at 72 degrees. Well, guess what? Your furnace will continue to run for a little bit, maybe a couple minutes, and the house temperature goes up for a little bit, and then the whole process goes over and over and over throughout that whole time. Your house is never at 72 degrees constantly. It's a fluctuating temperature. Why do I tell you this? Well, guess what? It's the same for you when it comes to your body temperature. Your body temperature is 37 degrees C. Oh, by the way, that's 98.6 the old way. But what's really happening is this. Your body temperature is constantly fluctuating. It's going up and down and up and down. You go to the doctor and have your temperature taken. Sometimes it's 98.1. Sometimes it's 98.9 or something like that, maybe even 99, and you feel perfectly fine. You're not sick at all. Well, your body temperature is constantly fluctuating, and your body is also working to try to keep it as flat and as even as possible. Some examples of items that your body is trying to keep in constant level amounts. The oxygen level in your body, the carbon dioxide level, the sugar, waste in your urine is something called urea. That's where urine comes from. You want to keep the amount of water in your body at a constant amount. So your body's working at that. Temperature. And, oh, by the way, blood pressure. It goes up and down depending on things. Maybe you get excited at a basketball game. Maybe you're sleeping. Regardless, your body is trying to keep your blood pressure somewhat even. How does this work? Well, basically, there's 3 parts to it. First of all, there's something called a receptor. A receptor is something that receives or picks up the information. Somewhere in your body, some place is picking up the amount of oxygen in your blood. And it's then going to send a signal to a control center. Now, there's lots of different control centers in your body depending on what your body's trying to keep at an even thing. From there, the control center makes a decision of what needs to get done, and something is sent out to an area called the effector. The effector does something. It changes it. Whether it increases the amount of oxygen, if that's what we're talking about, holds back the amount of water, allows more water to be taken out of your body, whatever. The effector is where something is done. And it's those basic 3 things that happen with that throughout homeostasis. All right, some examples that we've talked about. Sugar, we're going to go into more detail about. Sugar is controlled in something called the islets of Langerhans. What the heck is that? Well, islets, that's like little islands. Langerhans, guess what that is? That's the dude who found them. Typical science people, when they find something, they name it after themselves. Hey, guess what? I'll be known forever just because I named it. And within these islets of Langerhans, you have something called insulin. That's a hormone which lowers the sugar level. And then in your liver, you carry something called glucagon, which increases sugar level. Oh, by the way, if your body has difficulty keeping track or keeping your sugar level even, what's that disease? Diabetes. Where is your pancreas found? It's found tucked underneath your stomach, very near where a lot of digestive juices are put into your digestive system. Your pancreas produces insulin, but it also, in other parts of the pancreas, produces all the digestive juices too. And here's a little bit closer look at how that looks. Now, let's say that your parents have snuck out for the evening and left you alone. And they left behind a big, huge, king-size Snickers bar and a 20-ounce, well, let's make it a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew. And they thought they had hidden it from you, but you were clever and you found it. So you decide, while they're gone, to just snarf it all down. Well, what's going to happen to your sugar level? So let's say this is the level of sugar. And let's say this is time over here on this. So at this point right here, let's say here's normal, and then right here is where you absolutely chow down on that. What's going to happen? Well, that's going to be digested, and you are going to get a super spike in that sugar level. Then your body will recognize, whoa, sugar level's way too high. And so it starts to produce more insulin. And it produces more and more and more. Well, then guess what happens? This is the normal level right here. But just like the thermostat, it will start to go down. And this is where we talk about a sugar crash. which, oh, by the way, is usually about 1:30 in the afternoon. Think about it. Right after lunch, you just snarf down a donut and a slushie, and then all of a sudden you come back to science class in the afternoon, and then you're all of a sudden kind of sleepy. Well, you're in a sugar crash. You have tanked. Your sugar level is way, way low. Well, then your liver goes, oh, geez, your sugar level is way low. We're going to dump a little glucagon back in, and eventually, it'll take a while, but it eventually goes back to its normal routine. These super highs and the super lows are not good for your body. We know that. But does it stop us from eating a donut and a slushie once in a while? Let's move on to something called your kidney. Kidneys do a lot of things. They mostly regulate waste items, but they also regulate water level, and they also regulate levels of certain minerals and vitamins. Where are your kidneys found? Little tiny things kind of midway in the back of your body. Right above your hip, you can kind of feel where your kidneys might be. You can't feel them through the outside of your skin because they're so protected. Kidneys filter blood. Write that down. Oops. That's not what I wanted. They filter blood. And then, whatever gets filtered out travels down to your bladder. So, number one is nothing more than filtered blood. Your tinkle is nothing more than what used to be running around in your bloodstream. Hard to believe, but that's what's really going on. If you look at a cross-section of a kidney, it looks something like this, and we're going to focus our attention on this up here. This you cannot see if you were to cut open a kidney. It would just look like little fibrous material. But if you could put it under a microscope, it would look something like this. A nephron is the main unit of the kidney. And it is the unit that filters your blood. By the way, one of my favorite actors of all time is Zac Efron. Never mind, I tried. All right, so you have on the back of your sheet something that looks like this. I want you to take a few moments now and label these parts of the nephron. Stop the video, and when you're done, then you can continue. What happens when you filter your blood is, first of all, the capillaries will take blood in, and you can see little parts of it go into the Bowman's capsule and then are filtered out. That's kind of a neat thing, ain't it? And this happens through millions and millions of your nephrons in your kidneys. Well, when it filters out your blood, it takes a lot of extra water out with it. And so what happens, the items get filtered out, and then they pass through these tubes. You have the proximal convoluted tubule, and then eventually you have the distal convoluted tubule. And items travel down through this thing called the loop of Henle. Well, like I said, more water is filtered out than what you want. Your body somehow is able to recognize that too much has been taken out, too much water has been taken out. And so it will recoup, it'll reabsorb through this network of capillaries the water that was lost. If it didn't do that, you would have to drink a lot more water than you do right now. But because your body can reabsorb that water that got filtered out, you don't have to drink as much. So again, here's another picture of a nephron. And then after the things get filtered out, what's ever left gets collected in these bigger tubules, and they get taken down into the center of the kidney, and then eventually through the ureter, and then the ureter, the ureter takes those down into the bladder, and it starts to collect down there. And it starts to fill up and fill up and fill up and fill up. Till the point where, guess what? You raise your hand or you're bored in science class and you decide to go to the bathroom. By the way, how much can your bladder hold? You'd be surprised. Most of the time when you go number one, you are tinkling about 350 milliliters, and that's about 1 can of soda, thereabouts. But if need be, you could do easily 3 times that amount. You could do, if you had to, easily 1 liter of tinkle. So yes, that bladder down there may start to really press on things, but you can really hold it for a long time. Okay, please have a summary written down at the bottom of your sheet. If you have any questions, please make sure that you write those in the margins, and we'll talk about this in class, and see you next time.